Mr Chair.
Sue Moroney.
Mr Chair, I'd like to take the opportunity to speak on the early childhood education part of the vote education estimates for this year. And in doing so, I just want to correct a statement that was made by a previous speaker, who actually I think accused teachers of being dishonest. And, you know, again, the national government having a crack at teachers, I don't know what it is that they've got against them, but it was actually early childhood education where they actually started the war on teachers, actually. They started it back in 2010 under the then Minister Anne Tolley, when there was $400 million cut out of vote early childhood education. And that $400 million that was cut out at that point has never been reinstated, Mr Chair. And that's why teachers complain about funding cuts in early childhood education, because if any of the national MPs opposite dared to go to their local kindergartens and into their early childhood education sector and ask them about whether they are funded to employ 100% qualified staff any longer, they will be told very clearly that they are no longer funded for that because that government cut the funding for 100% qualified staff. And that's where the dumbing down of education started. It started in early childhood education, and of course what we know is that once the government thought they could get away with dumbing down the quality of education for early childhood education, then they started to attack the compulsory sector. And the minister may laugh. She thinks that she thinks she's got away with it. She thinks she's had a great old time actually dumbing down the quality of our education. But New Zealand parents and children are going to be the worse off for that, Minister. It is not, in fact, a joke for those families who immediately faced an 11% increase in the early childhood education fees that they paid during in the year immediately after the 2010 cuts to qualified staff in early childhood education. But we are still waiting to hear what the outcome of the Early Childhood Education Task Force report recommendations are, because they have a recommendation sitting in front of the Minister to this very day that actually says that the subsidy, the universal subsidy for 20 hours free early childhood education should be cut. That's what a government task force has recommended to the Minister. That recommendation has been sitting before the Minister for about 18 months now, and the government hasn't been brave enough to move on it. So we wait with bated breath to see whether there are further cuts coming up in early childhood education, and in fact whether parents will be paying even more in fees. And the Minister may find it funny that parents are having to struggle to find more money to pay for early childhood education for their children, but I can tell the Minister that families up and down the country do not find it very funny at all. And there is a big question mark over where the slight increase in participation is coming from, because it appears that it's coming from unresearched, unevidence-based supported playgroups. And we do not know what the quality outcomes are for children using supported playgroups, but this government doesn't care. All it cares about is if it can put the numbers on the page, the bums on the seats, but not interested at all in the quality of the early childhood experience for those children. And, Mr Chair, that is a real problem for the future of this country, because all of the research and evidence tells us, because yes, this side of the House, we look at that, tells us that it's quality early childhood education that makes the difference, not fly-by-night early childhood education, not a bit here and a bit there, and not supported playgroups, Mr Hinari, that we have absolutely no information on. We have no evidence about what the quality is of the outcomes for those children. And yet that is what the government is putting all of its hopes on. It keeps going on about the 70% increase, apparently, that it's put into early childhood education funding for about a 2% increase in participation. Well, Mr Chair, I ask the House, is that a good spend of money?
I call Colin King.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just to add a bit of history to the last speaker, when Labor